Good afternoon, everybody. Johnny Eric Williams is going to be joining us shortly. Johnny's the chair of the sociology department at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm coming to you from New Haven, Connecticut, so the small state of Connecticut. And we're going to talk about the events of Wednesday and make some suggestions about what's upcoming and how we prepare ourselves for really the psychic bombardment, political bombardment, economic bombardment, public health bombardment, and how do you still remain safe when literally word bombs and in some cases shattering glass and bullets uh, still circulate throughout the universe and unfortunately perhaps even in your local neighborhood. So just stay with us. Johnny Eric Williams will be joining us shortly. Johnny is a published author and tenured professor at Trinity College, as I mentioned. And as you know, you may have heard, even regardless of your academic familiarity, there's this phrase, publish or perish, pertaining to thrival and survival in the academic world. So when you're a tenured professor, you have certainly published, you have certainly proven your worth, and it's a very important position to hold in academia, and particularly in America at the moment when we hear so much controversy about what does free speech mean, and can one be held accountable for free speech, and is free speech being eroded, jeopardized, or threatened actually by things. So we're Johnny will be joining us shortly, and we'll talk for about 40 or so minutes in this regard. Just hopefully whoever listens to this, we're recording it on Monday, January 11th. But regardless, whenever you do happen to listen to this, even if it's far into the future, we hope that you are safe and sound and remaining healthy and working on your health. I use the phrase working on your health because people have jobs and professions and passions, but I think taking ownership of your health, working on your health, understanding that the equilibrium between your body and mind and spirit is so fundamental, really fundamental to, I think, what we call this proverbial happiness. And in spite of the fact that happiness can be individually interpreted, I think the word happiness resonates with all of us, at least, and even if we understand it in a very unique and personal and even selfish standpoint, my happiness might result in your loss, of happiness. So there's that dynamic and that dichotomy that I think is present when we talk about these philosophical issues of being a human being, and can a human being share, and can a human being have empathy, and a human being have sympathy? Can we all, as Rodney King has said, can we all get along? But these are issues that I think we are even very paramount and glaringly. I'm on the phone call, sweetie, and even glaringly apparent as a result of the events on Wednesday. So again, we're just waiting for Johnny Eric Williams to join us, the tenured professor, chair of the Department of Sociology at Trinity College, and also a very active contributor to the Black Agenda Report. And speaking of the Black Agenda Report, I highly recommend that people consider going to the Black Agenda Report to kind of add spice to your content. I would say your content menu, whether you go to CNN or Al Jazeera or NBC or ABC or MSNBC or Fox News or wherever you might happen to or Apple News, Yahoo News. But the Black Agenda Report is something that a site that I would recommend to people. Check it out. Check it out. I think you might like it. The People's World is another website that I really recommend. People's World. It's an extension of the Communist Party of the United States of America, Communist Party USA. But there's information there in the People's World that I really, really highly recommend. We hear so much about socialism and communism and conscious capitalism and compassionate capitalism. So these words are fascism, for that matter. State sanctioned economy, kind of, as you know, in China, there's a number of the enterprises are subject to the control of the government. I mean, even here in the United States, keep in mind that we have some regulated economic things, such as Johnny Eric Williams is here. Johnny Eric Williams. Can you hear me, Johnny? Just 1 second. Hold on. So Johnny just needs to get something for a second. And again, this Zoom is kind of my preferred mechanism. WebEx is another. And there will be others. But given this pandemic, and I think the word pandemic is becoming so much of a cliche. It's a global war that we're involved with. A global war about whether we can exist as a species. You've probably heard people say that even if a nuclear bomb dropped, that humans might be extinguished, but bacteria would still survive. So does that mean that bacteria is stronger than us? That bacteria is more mutable than us, more smarter? I think that's an issue to keep in mind. I just digress, and Johnny is back. And he's putting on his headphones so we can kind of do things. Mr. Williams, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, man. Good to see you. I was just sharing some opening thoughts, and again, given as we know, it's tomorrow in Australia, so you're on time. You're a day ahead of time.
I am.
And speaking of time, people use this phrase, Sankofa time, where you want to try to look back and consider the current moment and even the future moment in one kind of cognitive framework. Some people call that quantum computers. But I digress again. And some people will even talk about time being an invention. So, and then lastly, people talk about CP time, but that's a different. I'll just throw that in, Johnny.
Yeah, I hear you.
I can only butter you up, but so much. Sometimes the truth, you have to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Speaking of spades and reality and time, let's reflect on Wednesday, because for me, Wednesday was not a one-off. There are certainly many events and tributaries and circumstances leading up to what we saw at that point in time on Wednesday. But also it seems to me that there will be other episodes that we can relate to what happens on Wednesday for unfortunately pertaining to the future. So let's jump right in.
Okay. Well, what I saw taking place Wednesday on the news, like everybody else, it was on national TV, was basically an attempt to overthrow the government. I mean, this is not, I'm not saying it lightly. I think that when you have people who are dressed in paramilitary Kevlar, who have weapons, who are fighting the police on Capitol Hill, who in some ways, I don't know if it was a police failure or police kind of involvement in the insurrection itself, given that there were so many police officers and that folks who came through the gates of the little barriers that they had seemed like they were pretty much let in, but they became violent. It just epitomizes the history of the United States as a country that is uh, periodically engages in, and it's not even just periodically, it's really like consistently engage in white terror, you know, um, in order to reassert whiteness, the predominance of whiteness, and the fact that they don't like uh, the way the country is moving when it comes to the demographics of the country itself.
Mhm.
The country is quickly becoming, um, in the way the people who were doing the assaulting of the Capitol and threatening the Congress folk, they see to a great extent that they're losing their grip. Whiteness is losing its grip. But at least they think that's the case. And because these folks, I mean, and they weren't just, and this is the thing that trips me out, is that they weren't even folks who were working class white people. Working class white people didn't participate in this, even though they try to say this is the case. These are people who were CEOs, police officers, army officers, uh, from across the spectrum, right? Not to say some working class people weren't there, but these people weren't poor, you know. So this was an effort by, one can say, fascist elements in the United States to overturn the government to ensure their interests, and that the current president 45 incited it, and that it's pretty much known that he was inciting it from the moment that he lost the election.
Mhm. And I put on Facebook a little note about, if you want to talk about domestic terrorism, just Byron Stevenson has something to say, about that. If we'd had social media,
Yeah.
really representative journalism during all the
Well, it is. The thing that really struck me though is that how quickly the establishment was willing to use the word sedition, insurrection.
Mhm.
Right. That told me the seriousness of it all. Me and my wife were watching it, and told her, I said, look, this is very serious. This is the first time I've heard anybody who was this. This is legal language. This is constitutional language. This is very serious
Mhm.
when they say this. And then we see last night on 60 Minutes, the Speaker of the House clearly was pissed and took it personally.
I mean, from the personal standpoint, for better or for worse, I mean, it amazes me from a statistical standpoint that there was not a senator or congressperson that had a heart attack, and a fatal heart attack during that time.
Yeah, yeah. They are very old, right? You're right, right. I mean, see, the thing is that they got that government health care though, so it's like
Mhm.
socialized medicine. So they're very well taken care of. So no, they haven't. None of them passed away or anything like that. But I can tell you that they'll probably be suffering from feeling insecure in that house that is the Capitol
Mhm.
for a while, because of the fact of the not so much police failure, but police basically participation in this
Right.
insurrection,
There
which
certainly is a speculation and suggestion of the
I don't
inside
think it's
job.
speculation anymore, though, Tom. I
Okay.
think, I mean, the reporting itself has been magnificent. ProPublica released something yesterday documenting this and who these people were. There's another piece that came out in BuzzFeed that also lays out who these people were and who they are. And some coordination was probably probably taken place because somebody had a map to how to enter the Capitol
Yeah,
and the places easily to enter the,
and
and
particularly
that's
Jim
been
Clyburn,
documented.
Clyburn's office that was not even publicly made available. Fast
Oh,
forward a
see,
little bit. Fast forward a little
okay.
bit, Johnny, to where we go, because as you heard about, um, 145th loyalists are kind of returning next week to DC. What we don't know what in what numbers, but what does that mean to you that even they're talking about, Bull Run is over, but now we're going to go to Gettysburg?
Well, if they want, and I know this is the eyes of, this is the way these white supremacist groups think, using the Turner diaries, which lay out exactly how it is that this kind of insurrection should take place. And they actually did it. They had a noose at the Capitol, which the Turner diaries talks about, to hang the leadership and stuff like that. This doesn't bode well for the country, nor for those people who are coming to the Capitol. This time, and I think for a long while now, there will be heightened security at the Capitol.
Mhm.
It will be a bloodbath for them if they attempt to do anything.
Mm.
Even if they even come to, I mean, just today, the National Park Service closed off all the monuments in anticipation for them arriving.
Mm.
This should tell you something,
Mhm.
right? So the National Park Service is doing this, and behind the scenes, the National Guard is doing some things. I'm sure the Pentagon has been coordinating too, because this is an insurrection. So then the Army can be called in to
Yeah.
put this down, right? So I mean, it's not going to be good.
And as you heard, in addition to our capital, DC, being a target or
Mhm.
a location for aggression, there's also the reporting about the various state capitals being subject to.
Yes, I mean, this is especially state capitals where there are Democratic governors, I believe.
Mhm.
This is not good. Even in Georgia, since the state went blue, they want to attack the Republicans down there. They see them as traitors, as Lindsey Graham and Mitt Romney walking through the airport, Reagan Airport, in DC. They were being jeered by these people. I mean,
Mhm.
the thing about it is that these are people who are not even trying to hide. They need to be arrested immediately and put in jail.
So elaborate on
What
that
they
in terms
did.
of you're chair of the sociology department at Trinity, as I mentioned before you came on, and
Yeah.
elaborate in terms of culture and mores and motifs and wannabe behavior. I mean, certainly as a sociologist, there's a lot of fruit for you to kind of unpack.
Well, when you look at the kind of ideology that these people have been exposed to, uh, they've been fed misinformation for a long time via networks like Fox News. Um, and not to say that CNN and MSNBC are not also, full of misinformation, and CBS and all of them, but this information right here was dangerous, though. To construct everybody who disagrees with you as an enemy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that means I mean, they basically dehumanized other people.
Yes.
It's like, I'm gonna digress for a second, but I want to come back to this. It's like this video of this guy trying to get on a plane who had participated in insurrection, at Reagan National Airport. Maybe it was Dallas. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going off about the fact that he was on a no-fly list. He can't leave DC, right?
Yes.
Because he's been identified as one of these, seditionists. And so he got really riled up, I guess, and they tackled him. The police in the airport tackled him, put him to the ground, and he uttered these words: "You're treating me like I'm black. You're treating me like I'm black." Okay, I mean, so when you come back to this this question that you asked me, and refresh my memory again about the question that you asked.
Well, in terms of and you even gave more concrete.
Oh, you're talking about the students and the ideology. That's what you asked me.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
as a sociology person, culture, mores, beliefs.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, look, these people they're in this bubble of misinformation, and they get they were getting all the information from Donald Trump, from Breitbart, from the Daily Storm, these white supremacist organizations, the Washington Times, the very ones that attack me. I mean, it's not lost on me. Is that the very thing that they were doing to other people, especially in academia, Black women and Black men in academia. Now they're getting visited upon like that. And that's why I refer to that black guy, that white guy saying that you treated me like I'm black.
Mhm.
because he knows on some level that the police exist to protect his whiteness and his privileges, and that he can get away with things, right? So when you think about this, this is a moment where we can provide insight to students about how this kind of like being in this particular cultural bubble that they were in, a white supremacist culture, a white nationalist kind of mentality, has created these people who basically, why are they fearful? So this is the question that one wants to ask. Why are they talking about make America great again as if America was great ever? It ain't never been great. It's just like saying Great Britain. Britain was never great, you know. It was an empire, right? The United States was an empire, right? What's great about it? What's you know, return to that? I don't want to return to that. That's bad for most of the people in this country now to be under that kind of racial capitalist mentality, that kind of thing, right? But these people believe that
Yeah.
something is being taken from them because they're so miserable. They're economically miserable, right? Their jobs have been pushed away to the overseas for low wage jobs, for low wage labor overseas. They're being exploited worldwide. People are being exploited, right? They got mobile capital. They can move their corporations anywhere in order to make more money. This is the problem. But they're scapegoating immigrants, scapegoating Muslims, scapegoating Black people. I mean, we're the biggest scapegoats in American history. Native Americans are being scapegoated. Everybody's being scapegoated except for white people. I
And,
mean,
and,
because they
and,
can
as you,
do no wrong.
and as you allude, the oligarchs are also maximizing and profiting from this turmoil.
Yeah, we can see that with the fact that these billionaires have increased their billions. I mean, Elon Musk, right? Jeff Bezos. I mean, look at all the money that they're making off of this. The stock market is making cash money off of this kind of division
So
because we're not focused on the source of the problem.
so elaborate on that in terms of where we go from here. Next week we have and even people are already begun to every January to celebrate one of our esteemed prophets in the world in terms of MLK Jr.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? Look, this is going to be a hard road. Okay. It's probably going to be a bloody road.
Mm.
It's already been bloody. I think it will continue to be bloody for a while. It is hard to get people who have been so immersed in this idea that the government doesn't work for them. And this was basically brought on by the people who they support, the Republicans, right? And the Democrats too, mind you. I mean, neither one of them are great. They're both business parties. They work for corporations and the wealthy few. But the thing is that people are not recognizing what the source is. So it will be bloody, right? It's not going to easily go away. And the only way to address this, the only way to move us forward is one, you have to put the seditionists in jail,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just have to. I mean, they what they did was a very violent act. Trump should be in jail. The people surrounding him, Mark Meadows, all those people, they should all go to jail for a long, long while to think about what they did. The seditionists who actually broke into the Capitol, they should be in jail for a good 45 years or so, basically their lives for what they did, brought the country to this particular point, right? You have to have that first, right? So they have to be, in order to get some reconciliation, you have to have some justice.
Yes.
Right? Once you have some justice, you got to have some truth. We got to talk about where we are and how we got here, right? And it's been a long road hauling from the foundation, from the inception of this country to now. Accelerated. I mean, it was, this accelerant was put on it by Ronald Reagan, right? Then Bill Clinton, right? George W. Then Obama, and now Trump. The logical conclusion of it all, right? When it comes to this, I mean, he may not even be the logical conclusion if we don't stop it now, right? But the fact is that this is where we are. So we need that truth, and then we need radical structural change in the interest of the people who are suffering economically, right? Like so materially, the
Mhm.
education, all this stuff. You need all these things to put people to work, to give them a vested interest in government that works for them and not for the wealthy few. Take money out of politics. They should, no wealthy person should be allowed to contribute anything. And I mean, I've written about this consistently. I think there should be no one in this country worth no more than $250,000.
So
I mean, no one should be over that amount. There should be a maximum income, a maximum level of wealth. Everything above that 250, that $1 over, 100% goes back to the people. That's where it came from, right? I mean, that kind of bold kind of thinking, along with, I mean, people want a green new deal, but I don't know how can one be green if one is exploiting lithium from Bolivia and killing its people, right? For lithium batteries and stuff to run your electric cars and all this other kind of stuff. So it needs to be a Green New Deal that is worldwide, not just the United States, that brings the world along, right? So these are the kinds of bold, visionary kinds of thinking that we need, because without a vision, we perish as a people, right? We need to have that kind of leadership. But as I've seen so far with the Biden administration, he's trying to reinforce the old ways of being, the Biden Obama ways of being, the Clinton ways
certainly his
of being, this neoliberal kind of thinking.
certainly his
Go ahead,
upcoming
Tom.
inaugural address and upcoming State of the Union speech and how he does in the next 100 days requires our observation like crazy. When you mentioned the potential for bloodletting, and again the news cycle is moving so quickly, and certainly Wednesday has kind of swept everything off the map. What I'm trying to say is people have forgotten in general already what happened in Nashville early in the morning about two weeks ago.
Yeah, and that was a prelude to this, right? Dude didn't leave any messages behind, but he was sending a message to AT&T social media. And social media now has blocked all these guys, right? I'm not so much concerned about that kind of like blocking of people who are spewing violence and stuff like that on social media. But it is a concern that they've been doing this all along to people like me,
Indeed.
right? Whenever we talked about racism and stuff, they say it's a violation of their community standards. But they didn't do anything about the fact that Trump and his boogaloos and Proud Boys and all those people were spouting this stuff on social media continuously without being, suspended from these accounts up until now. So there's concern. I mean, will this be used, as I think Biden is using it, as another means to fasten devices on people overall, regardless of what they're saying? Anybody who disagrees with the dominance of the racial capitalist, neoliberal racial capitalist way of thinking will be controlled and their speech will be violated, that kind of thing. So I'm concerned about that.
There was a recent, just in the last few days, the Department of Defense report on what took place on Wednesday. They titled the report Free Speech Demonstration.
Yeah, I mean, that's a way. I mean, look, we've known, I know since, way before what happened to me in 2017, we've known that free speech is just a guise, right? It's a guise used to let them spew this hate and to spew violence and to attack people. And that's why they use it, because it's like, oh, you got this right to be free speech. But that wasn't free speech. And any speech that is violent is not free speech anyway.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And just when you reference a good friend of mine here in New Haven, who now is a probate judge, Clifton Graves, he started an Obama mentorship program in the middle schools for young men. And I participated in some of the sessions. We recorded some of the sessions, did some videos, and we get a call from Fox News about pertaining to one of our programs that's been on YouTube, and we literally get the call, somewhat of a call of intimidation, because they thought we were indoctrinating the middle school men to be Obama acolytes, if you will. So in terms of the surveillance world and the media surveillance capacity, it's really remarkable. But I go to that because I tend to watch. I'll admit in full transparency, there's certainly a probably have a strong masochistic personality. So I watch Fox News daily, not every show, but at least two shows. And
Hmm.
they're not going away, and their audience is going to continue to increase in my estimation. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what I mean. I mean, if we want to be a society that values people in community, there needs to be some restructuring done when it comes to the kind of news media that is allowed to exist that is harmful to the community and to the people. Uh, there needs to be a reinstatement, at least at minimum, of the fairness doctrine when
mhm.
it comes to media, so that they can't have this one-sided point of view. Even with the fairness doctrine, which was imperfect, at least you got a point of view, at least something of a point of view.
And which
But you never
president,
saw people like me on there. But I'm just saying, you
which
got some.
president rescinded the fairness doctrine?
Oh, I can't remember. It's
Reagan,
probably
your,
it was Reagan or was it Clinton?
your buddy Reagan.
Reagan, my buddy. I don't. He's not my buddy,
I but
but
people forget that that really kind of opened up the doors for all of this, and people
yes,
also forget that Reagan was a famous, it's not famous, a well-known radio personality even before his movie
exactly.
experience. So he's understood for a long time the impact of media in people's
Hmm.
consciousness. I urge people often to read Reagan's endorsement speech of Barry Goldwater at the Republican convention
Hmm.
at that time. I urge people, it's on YouTube for people to read, to listen to the Reagan's seconding speech
Yeah.
for the nomination of Barry. So when you mentioned, so whether we go back
Hmm.
to Barry Goldwater or whether we go back to Father Conklin, we
Yeah.
can't forget about him. There's been whether we forget about the KKK march in D.C. in like 1928 or so.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of tea leaves around here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, this stuff is, I mean, most people think that history is in the past, but the history reverberates to the present. So it's not just in the past, it's continuing to operate. I mean, look, I mean, if Biden is serious, he's going to have to do some serious house cleaning
Mm-hmm.
and structural reworking if he's serious. But I don't think he's serious, right? I mean, reading this, looking at his appointments, I mean, look, I mean, there's this thing that's going on social media where this officer who's black in the Capitol, he led these
Yes.
people away from the Senate to these other people. They
Yes.
show he led them to this other bigger group of police upstairs waiting for him with guns pointed at him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, and they all went back down away from the Senate from that. But uh, and then the fact that the Senate race in Georgia, that black people turned out in large numbers
Yeah.
to get these senators elected. Ossoff, who's Jewish American,
Mm-hmm.
and Ralph Warnock, who's a Black American, right? So for the first time, the state is not represented by somebody who's a rabid right racist, right? Who's white, stuff like that, right?
Or
So
no, let's say
black people
no.
save, and the idea that black people have to save white people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't like that meme for the very fact is that it continues to racialize us and make us subservient, is that we have to take care of them,
So
right?
say more about that, because that motif, that symbol, that caricature, that
Mm-hmm.
soundbite continues to permeate our culture because we hear it time and time again. We're responsible for saving the soul of America. Say some more
Yeah,
about that.
no, the thing is that the only ones who can save people who are white soul is white people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So,
quite frankly,
go ahead.
I mean, I don't know why. Look, I don't. People use this other kind of idea about speaking truth to power. I mean, I've heard you use it, right? I mean, I don't speak truth to powerful people. They're not interested in the truth. They're interested in perpetuating their dominance, right? They'll lie, do everything, kill, anything to do that. I speak the truth to people who think that they have no power.
Hmm.
The most important people to speak to. They're the most caught up in the idea that they don't have, they can't transform the world in their image to help, create a world that is beneficial to them, right?
And,
So that's
and
most important, right? And we're not here to save white people. Look, for as I'm concerned, I think anybody who, whiteness is imaginary. White White is imaginary. There is no white. There is no black. It's imaginary. I want to get rid of that.
Indeed.
Eliminate that. We're just human beings, right? That's what we need to be. I don't want to say white.
And we've talked, and it's really been a pleasure, Johnny, to have you in these conversations, and for you to reach out to me about today. I was a little hesitant about today because just get so many conflicting emotions and confusion and angst. But it seems to me that we've spoke on several occasions, but I've never asked you the direct question about your religious beliefs. But I'd like to, in the context of you're familiar in the Bible about the Damascus Road, Paul having the Damascus Road experience.
Yeah.
So
his come to Jesus moment.
The come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that when we've talked about white people who think that they're white, moving into another cognitive construct, is it similar to do you have hope that there can be that come to Jesus moment? Or
of course. Look, the key, these are the key words. They are human beings who, out of their thirst for material gain over other human beings, have decided to call themselves superior based on the fact that they have designated themselves and imagined themselves to be white, right? It's an imaginary thing. And they've convinced other people and defined other people against that whiteness to believe that they are not white and thus less deserving of material things of life, right? And that they have so much because they are superior, right? But that's where that comes from. Do I believe that we can get rid of it? It didn't exist before. It didn't exist 300 something years ago. I mean, almost four centuries ago, it didn't exist. We created it, right? And we can definitely get rid of it because we're all just human beings.
And I really appreciate your saying that. And as you were referencing earlier about the need for the Biden administration to go big, my mind flipped back to, I believe it was one of the laws for the Virginia colony back in like 1680 or so, where a white guy impregnates a black female slave, the child remains a slave. So even back then, there was some concern about how do you maintain this, as you referred to, this class hierarchy.
Well, I mean, look, it started with the Bacon's Rebellion scared them to death, and there was also rebellions in New York that were at that time interracial, but free and unfree indentured service and so forth that occurred, and these people were afraid. That is, the ruling class was afraid that if these folks got together, from these various ethnic groups together, and realized that they were the enemy, that these ruling white class people who were exploiting both of them were the enemy, that it would be the end of them. There was a book written by this guy, I think his name is George Fitzhugh, called Sociology of the South, which basically says that they needed to give people who were from Europe the idea that they were white in order to divide them from black people, right? Right. So, the people who were classified as black or African, right? And so they did that, right? So then they codified it, right, into law.
Indeed.
What you were talking about, right? At first, they had to deal with the fact that with Christianity, if you were baptized, this is the early 1600s. If you were baptized, then you were free. You were a brother, a sister in Christ, right? So you were on an equal plane with them. And so the Episcopalian Church, I believe, was in Virginia. That came up with a law that says that now Christianity, even if you're baptized, you can still be enslaved.
That's right. Your soul will go to heaven.
Yeah, but your body's still enslaved.
Your soul food. Right now, we need you to cook and pick that soul food.
Exactly. See, so this is the kind of whiteness mentality, the white mind, that how it operates to a great extent, right? So then they needed mechanisms to divide people, from keeping them from looking at who was creating their suffering, their miseration. So they gave white people whiteness.
That's right.
They gave those people, Europeans, whiteness. And that's what we've been. And so we can get rid of this.
The Irish indentured servants, like it's had their 7 years and then free.
Yeah, I mean, and Karen Brocken wrote a book. It's called "How Jews Became White." There's also one about how Italians became white. They weren't white before, they got here, but they had to invest them in the system of hierarchy, and they gave them this kind of whiteness, right? And it's all linked to capitalism, right? Right? They're both handmaidens, so like hand and glove, right? You need both, right, in order to facilitate the exploitation of human labor.
And so let's link what the 8 or 9 really, I think, cogent points that you've just mentioned in terms of, again, where do we go from here?
Well, again, I mean, I've told you one of the ways to begin to solve the problem is tremendous transformation of the existing institutions in our society to work for the people and not for the few people, but for everybody. That means free education. Anybody who wants an education should get an education.
And
right?
Minimally, would that include minimally the forgiveness?
That would include a living wage. Forget a minimum wage. A living wage, and it would include a living wage. The difference between a living wage and a minimum wage is this, for me, and there are other definitions, you can go and check them out for yourself, is that a living wage will provide you with everything you need to prosper, right? It won't give you anything like to go out and buy some mansion or something like that, but everything you need: childcare, food, housing, all the stuff you need, and not worry about all the utilities and stuff like that will be paid for. But the fact is, you want to use that model, though. I hate that, because I think utilities should be public. They should be held in common. We should be paying for utilities. We should just be taxed. That's it.
Universal basic income.
Yeah, universal basic income. And when you're unemployed, if you're unemployed in the system, hopefully there won't be any employment. There'll be full employment. Everybody guaranteed a job, doing something, and get an income. But if you can't find a job, the income comes to you anyway to maintain you and to maintain our economy, right? That kind of thing. So everything is centered upon helping the community and the people within it, and not just on profit making, right? Everything ain't for profit. Universal, a national healthcare system, right? That is on the line of what Cuba does, right? Right. And development of pharmaceutical companies that work not for profit, but for actually to develop cures, right? To fight disease and stuff like that, in the interest of the people, in the interest of humanity, right? That kind of thing. This is where we need to go. But will they do that? Well, these politicians won't do that because they're political mercenaries, right? They work for the wealthy few. So again, I want to be clear: political mercenaries. The United States is the United States of oppression. It is designed to facilitate profit making by exploiting everybody else, the average citizen, everyday people, but also the average global citizen around the world.
That gets back. Correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of your thought that there should be a ceiling,
maximum,
on how much a person.
It's not theirs. That money is. I mean, people get upset when they talk about the fact that they have to go and get get on the dole, right? Welfare, as we call it, right? Whose money is that? They've been paying taxes. Who pay taxes in the United States? Working people, poor people pay phenomenally way more taxes than middle class people, upper middle class people, or upper class people, right? It's their money, and they shouldn't be ashamed of getting that money. It's ours, right? And it's the same thing. The whole country belongs to us, not just those people. Even though they have codified it into the Constitution to a great extent, that that in an implicit way, that those who own the country, if you can own the land of the earth itself, should run the country. So if you don't own property, if you don't have it, you shouldn't be able to allow to vote or anything like it. That was the original Constitution, right? Yeah, so, and that's where we are now. That's why people are trying to disqualify people from the voting rolls and stuff like that, because you have no vested interest. You're there just a pawn to be manipulated, as those people who basically assaulted the Capitol were. They were manipulated by powerful people like Trump and Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani, and all the rest of them, Ted Cruz and Hawley and all those guys. They manipulated the everyday people to get their ends. They don't care for those people. The only one who care for those people are people like me,
Let's
right?
spend a few more, 5 more minutes or so. Just, I just wanted to mention as a historical sidebar, as we're approaching in February, Black History Month, but we know Black history is a 24/7, 365 experience. But a Congressperson, Gus Hawkins, back in the 1970s, Black Congressperson talked about the Fair Employment Act, Full Employment Act.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ground for us still to cover. As we
Yeah.
kind of conclude for the next 5 minutes or so, how do you want to share, or closing remarks or thoughts or even challenges to people?
Well, I just challenge people to stop, thinking that their opinions are fact, and to come out of their bubbles, and to approach people not as enemies but as their fellow human beings,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and to help people to look at the facts. I mean, I know it's kind of hard when you've been misinformed, right? And you believe what these people are telling you. And most
Well,
people do that. Everybody.
let me jump on that in terms of the facts, because I'm, in my mind, I don't mean jump on that, but it seems to me that we're at this
Mhm.
stage where people, our ability to discover and interpret and believe in the truth has never been more challenged. What am I trying to say? What's your
Mhm.
percentage of people that you've seen either in the videos or the pictures in terms of the events on Wednesday had on a mask?
Not that many.
20%, 30%, 10%, 40%?
I think less than 5%.
I've asked about 20 people that question since Wednesday. It ranges from 5% to, some people think 40%, but those people that saw 40 think that 40% of the people wear masks, I'm going to categorize as optimists. But my point is that just that fact that I, I think we all would agree that everyone in DC had heard of COVID. The non-mask wearers, they heard of COVID. They may have even known of somebody that died. So they're aware of the fact that COVID kills.
Yes.
They're aware of the fact that smoking kills, but I digress. But they're aware of the fact that COVID kills.
Yeah.
But less than 50% of the people there decided that they can take that they're going to take either the risk, or they don't care, or they don't believe. So the psychological dynamic of how you interpret and respond to so-called facts is really kind of continues to ruminate in my mind.
Well, yeah. I mean, look. I mean, a lot of this misinformation stuff was started with this idea to, what was it? Say, leave no kid behind. Act with George W. Bush,
Mm-hmm.
right? To basically continually dumb down education, right? To make sure it was this STEM stuff, and with Obama, the same kind of thing, right? They don't want uh, a kid that is well-rounded, that is liberal arts, right? With the humanities, with the social sciences, right? Philosophy, English, stuff like that, right? They just want somebody technically trained so they can exploit their labor, right? That leads then to people who are susceptible to information that isn't factual, because they're not thinking critically about the world. They're not being reflexive about, oh, should I really accept the fact of what this person is telling me is really the truth or not, right? So I think that if we look at how we arrived at this level of, I don't believe COVID, I should wear a mask, or that I have some right not to wear a mask, even when they're infringing on the rights or the liberty of other people who may die from them not wearing a mask.
Right.
They themselves may die. They don't understand that, because they basically are not being informed by education in the way in which education should work. I'm not saying it's the panacea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying they're not even getting just the basic. I mean, most Americans couldn't tell you what Saudi Arabia is, right? Geographically. We got most Americans who couldn't tell you what their state capital are, right? They couldn't. I mean, this is the level of dumb downness that has been created by the Democrats and Republicans, right? So I'm not surprised that we're here. But still, though, when people realize that those folks, when you provide people what they're hurting with the necessary material support and psychological support, they can easily be brought back to the facts, right? Right now, they're angry, they're scared, right? And they're lashing out.
Yes.
Right? So how to get them to understand that that's not going to solve their problem, but create more destruction, right? And I think we can do that, Tom. I really do. I think, but it has to be a coordinated governmental, state, local, national governmental effort. It has to be communal effort. It has to be an organized grassroots effort to get this done. But it appears that the national leadership has no will to do this. They want the chaos. They want the destruction.
So, let's pick up on that point in a few weeks or so, given your schedule. It's really somewhat selfish that to me that you're on sabbatical and have this additional time. But I'm going to hazard a guess, even if you were currently in class, you might be willing to have carved out some time for
Yeah,
us.
I would. I think this is a particularly important moment.
So we'll keep this going maybe in the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, kind of a retrospective. I think it's so important. For those of you that are listening, again, Johnny Eric Williams, he's active on Facebook, Black Agenda Report. He has a number of comments there from time to time, and as chair of the sociology department at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Johnny, it's really so great that you had time to kind of spare with me, and certainly stay healthy, and you're not necessarily wealthy, but I know you're wealthy in spirit, so that's the key thing.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. The material things fade away. You leave those behind. You weren't born with them. You definitely ain't gonna take them with you. So, so why should we have that? And I really appreciate you again, giving me an opportunity to speak, that I can share my thoughts with the public in this way.
Excellent, Johnny. Until the next time, and again, I use the sessions as, I don't mind publicly mentioning, as therapy sessions. I think we all need some sort of therapy, whatever you want to call it, whatever can nurture your spirit. Maximize it, and so I have benefited from these interactions. Thank you very much.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
All right, man. Until next time, everybody.